What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everyone's doing well out there. Today we're talking about our rankings here for Week 18 fantasy football. I'm going to be flying through the quarterbacks, the running backs, throwing it over to Kyle for wide receivers and tight ends, and that's basically going to wrap up, for the most part, the entire NFL season, but it has been a great one. We're not going to celebrate here too soon. We got a few more championships to win for all you crazy people out there that play in Week 18 of the season. Now, if you've watched our start-sit videos, we've kind of broken it down in a way that I feel makes the most sense to you, the viewer. The most important thing here in Week 18 is finding guys that have something to play for, right? We're looking for guys trying to get into the playoffs and trying to improve their seeding, trying to be that number one overall seed, because we know this weekend they got to keep their foot down on the pedal and try to keep on scoring us some fantasy points. So that's what it's all about. We're not wasting any more time. Let's dive into our top 24 quarterbacks here for Week 18. And right here at the top, we got Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs having a great season here so far. The Chiefs still have a chance at that number one overall seed and home field advantage. Got Mahomes at 1. Josh Allen coming here at number 2. An emotional game for the Buffalo Bills here this weekend. They also still have a chance at that number 1 overall seed. Followed by number 3, Joe Burrow, once again playing for something, right? They're trying to win the division. They're trying to get an opportunity at the number 1 overall seed in the AFC as well. How about number 4, Trevor Lawrence going for that division title. 5, Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Washington Commandos. Now the Commandos, they've been eliminated, but Dak Prescott still playing for that division and a chance at the NFC number 1 overall seed. What about number 6, Jared Goff continues to put up huge numbers, and even if the Lions are eliminated by their game Sunday night, they've already come out and said they're treating this game like a playoff game, and they're going to try to keep their opponents, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, from making the playoffs as well. I have Aaron Rodgers in that game right here at number 7. Number 8, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers, another team vying for that number 1 seed in the NFC. How about number 9, Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks? They're trying to make a wild card berth here, and they need a win this weekend. Number 10, Justin Herbert, just inside the top 12. The Chargers can improve their seed by 1 spot and have come out and said they're not going to rest their starters. Does that mean they play the entire game? That's questionable. That's why Herbert's at 10. 11, this is right now where I have Gardner Minshew. We're still unclear at the time of this recording whether or not we're going to have Jalen Hurts, but now the Eagles need to win this game to have a chance at that number 1 overall seed in the home field advantage. Got Gardner Minshew at 11. 12, Tom Brady. They said they're not resting him. Tampa Bay's already clinched, and they have no other further work to do, but Brady's never sat an end-of-season game in which they've already clinched a playoff spot. They said they're not going to this week. Got Brady at 12. 13, that's where I have Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns. They got a matchup going up against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs to win this ball game. Cleveland already been eliminated, but we're starting to see a little bit of an uptick in production from Deshaun Watson. Got him at 13. 14 is Daniel Jones. Would love to put him higher in a matchup going up against Philadelphia, but I will not be surprised if the Giants rest some of their starters, but for now, got Daniel Jones at 14. 15 is Kirk Cousins. The Minnesota Vikings have already started resting players. We saw that in week 17, so you better believe it's probably going to happen again. 16 is going to be Teddy B. Teddy Bridgewater. Still unclear whether or not he's going to play. He had a dislocated pinky finger. As of right now, trending in the right direction. Miami in a must-win situation going up against the Jets. A very difficult matchup, but Teddy B's at 16. 17, his opponent in that game, Mike White of the New York Jets, followed by Russell Wilson at 18. Denver's already been eliminated, obviously, but they have the matchup against their divisional opponent in the Chargers at home in Denver. Got Wilson at 18. 19 is Andy Dalton, then the roller coaster that is up and down Andy Dalton. Number 20, then Sam Darnold, who's playing great football here over the last 4 to 6 weeks. The ceiling isn't overly high. In a matchup here this week going to New Orleans against the Saints, I got Darnold at 20, followed by 21, Jarrett Stidham, who came out last week and looked like an all-pro quarterback, followed by number 22, Kenny Pickett of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're looking for the win. They're looking for the wild card chance. Kenny Pickett looking pretty good. The ceiling, just not the highest. Not enough touchdown passes on a consistent basis to really count on him in fantasy football. Followed by 23, Tyler Huntley of the Baltimore Ravens. Doesn't sound like we're going to have Lamar Jackson again. And then 24, Josh Dobbs starting for the Tennessee Titans in a game in Jacksonville against the Jaguars with the division on the line. Josh Dobbs last week showed that he wants to go deeper down the field, and he's going to lock on to Treylon Burks. So I got Dobbs at 24. But remember, a lot of the same things can be said for the running back position as well. We're looking for guys who have something to play for. And right here at the top of my quick and dirty top 30, we got Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. He was rested last week for this matchup this week for the division in Jacksonville, followed by number 2, Christian McCaffrey. San Francisco still trying to get that number 1 seed, followed by number 3, Austin Eckler. Highly involved in the offense. Dude just continues to score touchdowns. Chargers say they're not resting their starters, and they have a chance to move up 1 spot in the seeding. Got Eckler at 3. 4, Josh Jacobs. He's going to be a free agent after this year. They really have no reason to sit their starters, so Jacobs is at 4 in a good matchup going up against Kansas City. 5, Kenneth Walker, the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle has to win this ball game to have a chance. They have a matchup here this week going up against the Rams. Not the easiest of matchups, but remember the Rams are missing a lot of key pieces on defense, so I got Walker at 5. 6, Travis Etienne in that matchup going up against Derrick Henry for the division. 7, Nick Chubb. Obviously, Nick Chubb's ceiling has been drastically lowered with the addition of Deshaun Watson to the quarterback position, but in a matchup here this week going up against Pittsburgh, Nick Chubb should still be on the verge of 15 to 18 touches. Got him at 7. 8, his opponent in that game, Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers, been playing great football here over the last 4 to 6 weeks. Love to see him continue that in a must-win ball game. 9, Aaron Jones, right, winning in for the playoffs. Aaron Jones at 9, followed by number 10, the highest all season I've ranked, Cam Akers of the Los Angeles Rams. He just continues to have easy matchup after easy matchup after easy matchup, and he's actually producing with them. He's going up against Seattle in Seattle this week. Got Cam Akers at 10. 11, Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Cincinnati needs to continue to win to try to not only win that division, but have a chance at the number 1 overall seed. They got that matchup against Baltimore this week, so I got Joe Mixon at 11. 12 and 13, back-to-back, Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard coming back off of his injury. Zeke continues to be a great RB2 for your team, a solid floor, a decent ceiling. Got Zeke at 13, Pollard at 12 with the higher upside. 14, then is Tyler Algier, the Atlanta Falcons, continuing to get 20-plus touches a week, looking a lot better in this backfield at home against Tampa Bay, who could be resting some of their starters. Got Algier at 14. 15 is James Conner, right? It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. We're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins. James Conner more than likely going to get a lot of touches in this ball game. He's at 15. 16 is Miles Sanders, who's kind of disappointed for a couple weeks, but in a must-win game against the Giants, who really have nothing more to play for other than spoiling the day of the Eagles. I got Miles Sanders here at 16. 17 is Alvin Kamara, another one of those guys whose ceiling has been super, super low. They're going to be at home. They're missing a few of their offensive weapons. They're going against Carolina. Carolina's defense is really hit or miss, right? They're either elite or they're like the floodgates are open. The inconsistencies of Alvin Kamara, though, got him down at 17. 18 is Ramondre Stevenson because now he's splitting these backfield touches with Damian Harris. Number 19 then is DeAndre Swift, Detroit Lions, going up against the Green Bay Packers. Must-win situation for both teams. Now, by that time, we may have had the Detroit Lions eliminated, but like we already said, they're going to treat this game like a playoff game no matter what. 20 is where I have Jerick McKinnon, but he is trending down as of right now with the potential return of Mecole Hardman. Maybe we see a little bit more of that short passing game that McKinnon has really thrived on here as of late. Go the way of Mecole Hardman, so that's why he's at 20, but I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. 21, A.J. Dillon, as the cold months have gotten here, A.J. Dillon has heated up. He's at 21, followed by 22, Brian Robinson. Just continues to go out each and every week and get you over 20 touches, even though this game doesn't mean a whole lot. It's a divisional matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, and they really have no reason to rest Brian Robinson with Antonio Gibson banged up. 23, this is where I have Isaiah Pacheco, the safer floor play in Kansas City, in a matchup going up against Las Vegas, where if they can get a lead there in Kansas City, we could see a little bit more Pacheco down the stretch. 24, crazy low, but this is where I have Dalvin Cook, just because I'm worried that Minnesota continues to rest some of their starters. If he does sit for whatever reason, Alexander Mattison becomes a top 20 option for me. How about 25? This is where I have Jamal Williams and all of his touchdowns for the Detroit Lions. 26, Zach Moss, and it's disgusting to even put him this high, but his matchup this week is great. He's going against Houston. So if you find yourself in one of these situations where you need a running back, Zach Moss and his opportunity, not bad, but it's still Zach Moss. 27 is David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. We already know no Justin Fields. Sure, we're going to see David Montgomery. We'll see Khalil Herbert, but this offense may not have the scoring opportunities with Nathan Peterman under center, so we got Montgomery at 27. 28 is Latavius Murray of the Denver Broncos, now that Chase Edmonds is in the mix. Another team that's not scoring a ton of points, so I got Murray at 28, Donta Foreman at 29. Still the, I guess you could say, quote-unquote, leader in the Carolina backfield. The passing work going the way of Chuba Hubbard, but the touches on the ground between the tackles and on the goal line going the way of Donta Foreman. And then 30, this is where I have Saquon Barkley. Super crazy to have him this low, but until we find out for sure what the plans are for the New York Giants, I kind of expect them to rest him a little bit here this week to make sure he is a full go going into the first round of the playoffs. But like usual, I got my 5 guys on the outside looking into my quick and dirty top 30. It's going to be Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins, and it's also going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. of the Dolphins as well. This is very much a split backfield, and both these guys are dang near 50-50 when it comes to touches. They both have big playability. They both are in a game that matters, a game that they need to win, and it's a game here this week where they're going up against the New York Jets, a difficult matchup. We saw Teddy B rely on his running backs last week. Do they do it again? We then got Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Maybe they choose to rest Uncle Lenny, playoff Lenny, for this playoff stretch run. Rachaad White is somebody who looked pretty good last week, and when given touches and volume, has produced. He's just been in a heavy split with Fournette. We got White just on the outside looking in with J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens, and then Cordero Patterson as well with the Atlanta Falcons. They're finally starting to utilize him a little bit more, whether it's, hey, thanks for your services, he's on the way out after this year, or not. Cordero Patterson, a decent option against a Tampa Bay team, like I said, that could be resting quite a few starters, but these type of rankings are super difficult because you can see we got some big name guys super low, Dalvin Cook and Saquon Barkley, and I absolutely hate to do that. And that's why we hate playing in week 18 of the fantasy playoffs. There's just so much unknown, and at this point of the season, I would almost rather take those safer bets with guys that I know have something to play for than risk it with some studs that may not even play an entire half of football. We wish you the best of luck the last week of fantasy football here in 2020. Well, technically, it's 2023 now, but it's the last game of the 2022 NFL fantasy football season. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for the support here throughout the entire year. The offseason is going to be a straight banger here, so make sure you stay tuned. But now it's time to talk about them ball catchers and throw it over to our buddy Kyle.
Yo, Jake, the running back and quarterback rankings are looking crispy as always, but now I'm up, and I'm going to be hopping into my top 36 wide receivers, a few guys that fall just outside the rankings, and then my top 18 tight ends as well. One caveat with my rankings that I want to make sure everyone is aware of, these are different than what my start and sit video showed. The start and sit videos were all about safety. What guys are going to be the safest bets for you this week? This list is all about the upside, baby. That is right. I want to know what guys have the best chance at the highest upside this week. That's how I'm going to be making some of my decisions for those of you that need to get as much upside as possible, but maybe you're going to have to risk, yeah, this guy could end up sitting, but he has way more upside than another guy. Those are going to be some tough conversations and thoughts this week. So let's go ahead and hop into it and try to help you answer some of those questions. First up at the wide receiver position, Justin Jefferson. Now, here's the thing with Jefferson. He is risky. Why? Because if they get up big on Chicago, they could pull him at any point in time, knowing that their seed isn't going to change much. But with that being said, he's just under 200 yards away from the all-time single-season receiving yard record. Even if he would have had a decent game last week, he would have been much closer to that record. But now, being just under 200 yards away, he would have to have a massive game. Do not be surprised if they force him the ball at the beginning to see how many yards they can get him before halftime and then make a determination on the score at that point and whether or not they're pulling Justin Jefferson or they leave him out there and try to get him closer to that record. Ja'Marr Chase going up against Baltimore for Cincinnati. This game still, as of this recording, has not been scheduled as of yet, but Ja'Marr Chase and the Bengals, they still have a shot at the number 1 seed, and the NFC North is in their grasp with a win here. I expect Ja'Marr Chase to have a big game. Davante Adams, coming off a game in which no one believed in him except for us here at the Fantasy Headliners with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. I'm going right back to him this week. Kansas City going to be a shootout, throwing it. Kansas City allows the 4th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I'm going to go back to him this week, and I don't care what the risk factor is. Stefon Diggs going up against New England. We know that Buffalo still has a shot at the 1 seed, still obviously trying to clinch that up. Getting a win here would be really, really big. I don't really know what would happen this week if some things were to go awry and things don't get played out the way, and if Cincinnati and Buffalo would still end up needing to play their game. There's a lot of things that could come into play with that, so we need to keep an eye on that. But I know Buffalo is going to want to get a win for their boy DeMar Hamlin. CeeDee Lamb at number 5 going up against Washington. CeeDee Lamb, 3 straight games of 100 or more receiving yards. 2 of those games were over 120. Dallas looking for the 1 seed and that NFC East championship. A.J. Brown going up against the New York Giants, and the same thing. Now Philadelphia is looking for that, right? They really have hit quite a rough patch here with no Jalen Hurts. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts makes it back this week. They could go from being the 1 seed to the 5 seed. We don't want that. Amon-Ra St. Brown going up against Green Bay. I think we're going to see a lot of targets to him because Jair Alexander is not going to be on him. T. Higgins going up against Baltimore. Same reason I've got Jamar Chase so high. I think we see a lot of points from Cincinnati in this matchup. Tyreek Hill going up against the New York Jets. Got him a lot lower this week because it is a tough matchup. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be as of yet, but we know one thing for certain. You can do a lot of different things with Tyreek Hill that can, number 1, get him into the end zone. Number 2, make him fantasy viable. DK Metcalf going up against the LA Rams. We know that Tyler Lockett is still banged up. Playoff implications in this game for Seattle. Win and you are almost in, and then you need a Green Bay loss. Devontae Smith, I am going to put him inside my top 12 this week because there is a chance that the New York Giants rest people because they can't do anything. They are locked in at this point. The only thing that they're not going to get is the 7 seed. So for the New York Giants, what good does it do to play any of your starters, considering on defense you've been so banged up as of recent? Wouldn't be surprised if Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are able to take advantage of some potential rest there. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are going to come in at 12 and 13 for me, going up against one of the worst pass defenses in all of football with Tennessee. Jacksonville looking to wrap up the AFC South after a disastrous 2021 with Urban Meyer. Are you kidding me to bounce back and do that this year? You best bet Trevor Lawrence is going to have his A game this week. Christian Watson at number 14, the upside against Detroit is there. We know going into this game, no matter what, that Green Bay is going to have a shot at the playoffs. If Seattle loses, all they have to do, if Seattle wins, all Green Bay has to do is win. If Seattle loses, then they have to beat Detroit or Detroit gets the final spot. So a lot of implications here. We know that Detroit secondary will bend even if it doesn't break at times. Brandon Ayuk going up against Arizona. The upside is always there for him. San Francisco still has a shot at that 1 seed. Garrett Wilson going up against Miami. We know that the targets are going to be there. 11 targets last week, even though it didn't turn into anything. So I'm baking in a little bit of that inconsistency here, realizing that the upside with the potential targets is still there. Amari Cooper at number 17. I think we've got a guy that is definitely a touchdown threat again this week. He scored 2 last week. Getting in the end zone against Pittsburgh this week again could absolutely happen. Keenan Allen at number 18. This is another situation where not a whole lot can happen for the Chargers. So if they get up on Denver, wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some guys pulled. Number 19, Jalen Waddle. Would love to go higher with him, but again, the upside is just so low this week with him being a backup quarterback and a really tough matchup against the New York Jets. DJ Moore going up against New Orleans. We saw a really good game from him last week, but again, that touchdown is really what makes him dependent to be in your fantasy lineup this week. Allen Lazard at 21. I mean, I already brought up Detroit, right? The bend don't break defense. They're going to give up a ton of receiving yards, some touchdowns as well, and they're going to give up a lot of yards and then try to stuff you in the red zone. So for me, and Allen Lazard could absolutely see a good game this week. Mike Williams going up against Denver. Again, how early do we potentially see him pulled from that game? Same thing goes for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. This is a great matchup against Atlanta, but Tampa Bay is going to be solidified more than likely in that 4 slot. And if that happens, what's the point in injuring any of your players? You get the first home game, lock that in, make sure you're healthy to go next week, get that win, and then try to survive the rest of the way. Terry McLaurin at number 25 going up against Dallas. Sam Howell is really the biggest question mark for me here. That's who's going to be starting at quarterback. Chris Olave going up against Carolina. Carolina's secondary can be tough at times. I don't know if Chris Olave is even fully 100% at this point. And if he's not, does he get pulled early or not play at all? Jerry Jeudy at number 27 going up against the Chargers. Probably going to see more than enough volume, but if he doesn't score, you're looking at more along the lines of 7 or 8 fantasy points. Michael Pittman, tons of targets, but if he doesn't score, he's another guy that's only around 6-7 fantasy points. Drake London going up against Tampa Bay. Again, if Tampa Bay starters get rested, this will be good news for Drake London, who up until last week, over the last 4 weeks, had looked really, really safe. And then last week, that safety kind of disappeared. Marquise Brown, I've got him at number 30. Tough San Francisco team that is still going to be playing for something. Who's the quarterback going to be? And is DeAndre Hopkins going to be good to go this week? Gabe Davis going up against New England. That big play potential is going to be there, but we know that New England team, that defense can be tough at times, and they are also now playing to get in. Tyler Lockett, I'd like to go higher with him, but having all those screws in his hand, that is a concern for me. Jacoby Myers at number 33, going up against Buffalo. That secondary gives up quite a few fantasy points. Obviously, missing their safety in DeMar Hamlin, that's going to be an issue for them as well. And because of that, it could lead to a touchdown potential for Jacoby Myers. Cortland Sutton, decent amount of targets. You don't score, you're not going to get many points. George Pickens, another one. Hey, you got to score to get points from him. Treylon Burks going up against the Jaguars. I could definitely see him finding the end zone this week as well. What's going to happen at the quarterback position? Lots of things. Win and you're in for Tennessee and Jacksonville. Let's talk about the first few out. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's on the outside looking in. They just spread the ball around way too much in Kansas City right now. Donovan Peoples-Jones, highly touchdown dependent for me. Brandon Cooks, highly touchdown dependent for me. A little bit of a tougher matchup. Rashid Shaheed, maybe if Chris Olave is banged up, maybe if he doesn't end up playing, the big play potential that Shaheed has shown over the last several weeks is going to be there against Carolina. Adam Thielen, very touchdown dependent for me, but again, it all kind of goes back to, do they start resting guys? And if they do, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the first guys off the field to make sure they keep him healthy, especially if they're keeping Justin Jefferson out there to try and get closer to that record. DJ Chark, I don't like him against Green Bay this week. Would not be surprised if he sees the most of Jair Alexander, and that's going to take away that big play potential. And Isaiah Hodgins, really him, Richie James, Darius Slayton going up against Philadelphia. Not only is it a tough matchup, but again, we could see any of these guys rested at any point in time. Let's talk about some tight ends here real quick. My top 18 tight ends. Travis Kelce is going to lead things off. They're still playing for something, and he's got a good matchup against Las Vegas. George Kittle, San Francisco, going up against Arizona. They're still playing for something right now. 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games for George Kittle. Evan Ingram, Tennessee allows the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. We know both of these teams are playing for something. Big bounce back week for Evan Ingram. Darren Waller going up against Kansas City. Mentioned it last week. Jarrett Stidham's going to have to throw it. Who's he going to throw it to? Darren Waller was one of those guys. He finds the end zone last week. Now a shootout with Kansas City. Give me Darren Waller again. TJ Hawkinson going up against Chicago again. Does he get pulled at any point in time? Could see a decent amount of targets to start the game, but does that upside disappear later in the game if he gets pulled? Pat Freiermuth going up against Cleveland. He's the number 1 target on this team right now. And his upside at the tight end position is pretty good. His upside overall, though, can be a little risky if he doesn't find the end zone. Dalton Schultz, a couple of touchdowns last week. He gets Washington. Dallas is still playing for that 1 seed, that NFC East championship, and then also not dropping from the 1 to the 5 seed. Mark Andrews going up against Cincinnati, 100 yards on 9 receptions last week. Does the same thing happen again this week? I'm a little bit more doubtful about that. That's why I've got him a little bit lower again down here, but we know he'll lead the team in targets. Dallas Goedert going up against the New York Giants. I really just feel Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are going to kill it this week, which is going to leave a little bit less for Dallas Goedert. Tyler Conklin going up against Miami. Miami allows the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Wouldn't be surprised Tyler Conklin with Tyler White don't get themselves Tyler White. I keep doing that. I keep getting the names mixed up. That's a baseball player. Anyway, Tyler Conklin, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up seeing enough targets this week to not have a whole lot of upside, but get you a really safe floor. Tyler Higbee going up against Seattle. Seattle allows a lot of fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Will Baker Mayfield be able to get Tyler Higbee the ball? His upside for me, I'm trying to be very, very careful with it, but he could end up going a few spots higher. In fact, Tyler Higbee, I could see him as high as tight end number 6 this week. Juwan Johnson going up against Carolina. I think he is a much safer option at the tight end position for those out there looking at the New Orleans tight ends. Going up against Carolina, led the team in targets last week. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens again this week. David Njoku, I mentioned it earlier on the week that if he doesn't score, his upside is a lot lower. Are we going to see that score against Pittsburgh this week? Dawson Knox going up against New England. He's going to be kind of a safety valve potentially for, again, Josh Allen. Is he going to be able to use him on those dump offs? Is he going to be able to use him in the red zone? That's why I just got him a little bit lower here, because I don't know how how high the upside really could be. If you want to start Taysom Hill this week, then you feel more than welcome to, but just know if he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, you're effed. Just know that. Hayden Hurst coming in at number 16, going up against Baltimore. He's got to score to have that upside. Cole Kmet, we don't have Justin Fields this week. That worries me about Cole Kmet and his upside. And then Trey McBride, I'm going to put him right here at the end, because if for some reason we don't have DeAndre Hopkins, he could actually be a guy that we take a look at this week. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, absolutely flew through those for you. Hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Leave me a like on the video. Let me know that you've appreciated the content all season long. I'm going to get out of here, though. Good luck to everybody in your Week 18 matchups. I'll catch y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.